Welcome back to Leveraging Leadership, where we unpack the art of business leadership. I'm your host, Emily Sander, Chief of Staff turned Executive Leadership Coach. This show is all about finding your points of greatest influence and leveraging them to better serve those around you. Let me tell you why the worst mistake you can make in a layoff or a downturn is cutting your Chief of Staff. Chiefs of staff are not overhead, they're leverage. Think of them as your utility infielders or your shock absorbers or the glue that holds things together or the person who gives you a sanity check when you need it most. So here are some reasons why you need to keep your chief of staff. Reason number one, they are that utility infielder. Chiefs of staff aren't fixed to one functional area. They can drop into gaps wherever is most needed for you. So if you're like, Emily, we can't hire multiple heads to run these departments anymore. The chief of staff is perfectly suited to just hold HR together for the next little bit. You know what? We have to have our operations run. Our delivery teams need to have a leader. A chief of staff can step into that role. Same with sales operations, with marketing, with compliance, with product, all these different things. A chief of staff has a working knowledge already of all of those functional groups and knows how they tie together to the overall business. And so they're well suited to step into those roles. They're flexible, they're versatile, they're adaptable. And I just kind of feel like moving a chess piece on a board, you can move them where you need them to be. And a chief of staff is a utility infielder in that sense. Reason number two, chiefs of staff are culture keepers in these scenarios. So chiefs of staff are designers of culture in certain situations. We're like, hey, we're professionalizing the org, we're growing, let's help design and be intentional about the culture. They certainly help espouse the culture in their day-to-day and how they interact with people. In these scenarios, if you've had a riff, if you've had a layoff, and the people left are looking around going, okay, like the four people I used to sit next to and work with are just gone, that's a gut punch. That's a blow to morale. And so having someone who has been involved with the culture, who is attuned to that, who knows what needs to be done production wise, but also takes care of the people, takes care of the staff, and can talk to people on a human level is a huge advantage to have in your organization. The last thing you want to do is get rid of that and or get rid of communication channels, right? So if things are flying around, we're doing layoffs, we're doing rifts, which means something has not gone to plan. So there's changes happening. People are freaked out because like so and so next to me doesn't have a job anymore and I'm looking at their empty chair or whatever. Having someone say, "Here's the latest information. Here's what we're looking at. Here's how we're making decisions. We actually need to hear from you what you're hearing from customers and integrate that into our decision-making process." Someone to coordinate and connect all of that is critical, is imperative. You don't want to get rid of that at this juncture. I think also chiefs of staff are either spearheading or at least involved in the rhythm of business. So in the leadership meetings and in the all hands meetings, and maybe they have some different conversations with specific teams or perhaps specific individuals at the C-suite level, the VP level, director, manager, rank and file level. Those can continue and maybe even accelerate during these times to make sure the communication channels are flowing. The last thing you want is people to be freaked out because of layoffs and left in the dark and left wondering what's going to happen to me. Are they doing more? What's coming up and bracing themselves? So keeping that culture intact as best as possible. Chief of staff is that culture keeper. Reason number three, a chief of staff helps keep the principal sane. And I've said this in previous podcasts, but I'll say it again. Keeping the CEO sane and on point and not losing their gosh darn mind and not losing their marbles is a win for everybody, right? If a chief of staff goes insane, it's good for zero people. It's not good for the principal themselves, for the CEO themselves. It's not good for the chief of staff. It's not good for the leadership team, for the expanded team and staff in the company. It's not good for their family, et cetera, et cetera. So the last person you want to get rid of is the person who is trusted, your consigliere, the person who can be adaptable with you. We're going through some unexpected changes. We got to stay on point here. We have some decisions coming up that are people's livelihoods and potentially the effectiveness and the existence of the company in some cases. We have some big decisions to make. I got to make sure I'm making high quality decisions as the CEO. I need people around me who can push me, who can challenge me, who can see things from a different perspective, who can help me brainstorm, who I trust knows what's going on and also wants what's best for the company and wants what's best for the team and is going to tell me stuff straight to my face and is going to tell me the truth. So the last person you want to get rid of are those types of people. And chief of staff should be in that position already. So you want to have that thought partner. You want to have that person who keeps it real, but also can be encouraging and pick you up in times where if you're doing a layoff and you're a CEO, that's a tough spot for you to be in too. That's rough as well for making those decisions. So keeping the chief of staff to keep your sanity is a good call. 2 thumbs up. The fourth reason I would say is a chief of staff is the comeback catalyst. If you've done a riff or a layoff round or had to downsize, hopefully you will be able to bring some of those folks back. Hopefully you'll have an upturn. Eventually, we want to start bringing people back and we want to start rebuilding the teams. You have a chief of staff who that's their job, right? Chief of staff. They help design orgs. They help design org charts. They help figure out how do the teams have to be situated to operate the best together and as a group for the overall objective of the company. So if and when you bring folks back, you want to have someone who is adept and highly skilled at that function, at that intangible function of here's how we put this thing back together. And here's the sequence we do it in. And here's the comms we have about this internally and externally, all that stuff. They could even be training someone up. So let's say they did an interim HR role. Well, if you're in a position to bring back some HR staff, maybe it's the existing staff or the old staff that was there before. Maybe those people have found other roles, so you have to bring on someone new. In either case, the chief of staff is perfectly suited to literally help train and onboard and ramp those folks up because they've been doing that role themselves, or they at least have that working knowledge and they know how that role ties to the overall picture, how that role ties to the long-term goals of the company. So they can build this thing back up with you and or for you. If you're like, you go take care of this chief of staff, I got other stuff to deal with, you can give them the keys to the kingdom, drop it off, and know that it's going to be taken care of well by someone who knows all the players, knows the processes, and knows what you want out of the org structure. Okay, so those were the 4 reasons. The chief of staff is a utility infielder. They can flex in and out of different things. They are the culture keeper, so you want to keep morale up as best as possible, especially in these times. They keep you sane. They keep the principal sane, so that is a win for everybody. And they are the comeback catalyst for when you rebuild your team and rebuild your staff. You can do that efficiently, you can do that quickly, but also effectively. So those are some reasons why you should not get rid of your chief of staff in a downturn, in a layoff situation. It's almost the last person you want to get rid of. Oh, and one other thing I'll say here is one of the reasons that I chose the chess piece of a knight to be on the cover of my book about the chief of staff role is because the knight, which is the little horse piece, is the only piece that can jump over other pieces. It moves differently. It has a unique skill set or move set or whatever you want to call that. But this one is the only one that can jump over other pieces and they can unblock things and they just go where other pieces can't. And so I think in the same way as I was talking through this, that's the sentiment and that's one of the reasons why I chose the knight to be on the front of my book cover. So all of that to say, if you're in a rough spot right now and you're having to make some tough decisions, I would pause before you cut your chief of staff. Don't think of your chief of staff as extra, in quotes. Think of them as your leverage point, the leverage point you need, or the multiplier that you can deploy across your org to make it run better, especially in times of pressure. So I would keep some of these things in mind. And if you need help brainstorming any of this or soundboarding any of this, feel free to reach out, drop a note in the comments, reach out to me on LinkedIn. You can email me directly at emily@nextlevel.coach. Here to help. I know some of these scenarios are not where you want it to be, but it is where you are. And so you might have to be facing some of these decisions and try to make the best ones you can with all the information you have at the time. Hopefully this has been helpful and I will catch you next week on Leveraging Leadership.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please like, share, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.